Hi, my name is. Should I say hi to the church?
You can if you want to.
All right. Hi, church. Thanks for having me. This is the hardest part. Hi, my name is Akhil. I work at UTMB, and this is my story. So, growing up, I was born in India. I was born to a family that's very religious. I came to the U.S. at a very young age, but I quickly realized that there was this crisis in identity. I was neither Indian, and I didn't feel like I was fully American either. There's a terminology for this feeling I recently learned, and it's called third culture kid, TCK. And it's a word for any child who lived his formative developmental years away from his native land. So growing up, I felt like this third culture kid where I neither belonged to one or another culture. And because of not really having a clear sense of my cultural identity, I started thinking about other ways to identify myself. I started identifying myself as someone who would just be a good son and do really well at school, and that was what filled my identity. I remember even as a little kid, probably when I was 6 or maybe a little bit older, I remember thinking, what happens when I die? Do I just go off floating in space, or do I just stop existing? In the Hindu tradition, there are multiple personalities, multiple gods with multiple personalities, but there's one. Most Hindus believe that there's one impersonal God called Brahman, and they believe that with certain enlightenment, that there is becoming one with Him, and you sort of lose your personality in order to kind of unite with that God. I needed to have answers to those questions then and there. I started thinking about all of those meaning of life questions that I always had as a kid, and it was a very tumultuous time when I was grappling with these questions, and they were always inundating my mind so much that I could barely even do my work. For me, I began with something I found as universal. Every human, no matter what culture, what country they're from, suffers. Suffering is a universal quality of humankind. And I looked at different worldviews and how they answer suffering. While Christianity didn't offer all the answers, it offered the most complete one. It says that cause is our own sin, that we contribute to the evils and suffering in this world. Jesus offers us consolation. He was a man of sorrows that was acquainted with grief, and in our suffering, He walks alongside with us and goes before us. And as completion, when Jesus comes back in His second coming, He says He's going to wipe away every tear and resolve all suffering in a just manner. And this really appealed to me rationally, that there was this one worldview that could have a holistic answer to suffering. So I got to med school, and I quickly realized I was in a place where everyone was very smart. And I quickly felt mediocre, quickly felt average, and I think a lot of medical students experience this. But for me, it was intimately tied with my questions of what is my purpose, what comes in the afterlife, who am I? This was the time when I felt empty. I had nothing to offer. I felt like I had no purpose in life, being mediocre. And I was talking to my Christian friend, and my heart was, feeling ready. We talked for hours on end, and I asked him to explain the gospel one more time, and he did. And that's when I said, I'm ready to accept Christ. I'm ready to give up my life to Him. There was one particular time in this mission trip that I went to Indonesia last year with some of the coastal members here, and one of the missionaries was talking to me about third culture kid, which I mentioned earlier, and they were talking about how they never felt like they belonged in one culture or the other. They never felt like they belonged in America or in Indonesia. Their home, they said, was in heaven. And that was very revealing to me, because I readily identified with that my home, my native home, was never meant to be here on earth. And that's why the doctrine of adoption was very important to me, because here is a God who not only justified us, saying that even though we're unrighteous, saying that we're righteous in His name and what He's done, and He doesn't just leave us as, okay, you've done everything right, now you can go. But He says, no, come and be part of my kingdom, and now you are my family. So no longer do I have to struggle with, being an American or an Indian, but I know that I've been adopted into a family,